COVID-19 has affected everyone's life, including our horsemen and women around the world. We recently spoke with the executive director of the Delaware Standardbred Owners Association, Sal DiMario, to get his take on this pandemic and also to find out what's being done to help those in this very important equine agricultural industry.
I've never seen anything to this extent and magnitude. I've seen work stoppages through the years, sometimes contract negotiations at some racetracks. I've seen racetracks being shut down for a short period of time due to a contagious disease for horses, but I've never seen anything like this to this magnitude where racing has been just brought to a complete grinding halt, as is the rest of the country. Believe it or not, the contracts that we have with the racetrack do have provisions that address overpayments and underpayments in the purse account. Ideally, at the end of a meet, you want to have your purse account as close to zero as is possible. And you constantly manage the money throughout the meet to make sure that you're getting close to that. You don't ever want an overpayment, because if you do, that goes into your next meet. You go into the red to finish out a meet, and then you have to make that up during the off season to have a level where you can start your purses back at the start of the next meet. So this is something I deal with on a daily basis. Myself and the racetrack, we're constantly communicating on that issue. So there is some parameters for underpayments and overpayments, but nothing to this extent. We recently had raised purses for the second time at the meet. We increased the Delaware bonus to try and spend some of the additional money we were accumulating in the purse account. So unfortunately, all of that became effective in early March, and 2 weeks into it, they pulled the plug on us. But what we've done is we've been able to work with the racetrack for the races that had been drawn, programs that had been drawn. We were able to take those days and pay the purses that were scheduled by dividing the money up equally amongst all the entries and also eligibles in on each of those days, so that everybody will share equally that had a horse entered that day. It gets a little tricky regarding the last 2 weeks of the meet that we did not draw. And we've been in discussion with the Secretary of Agriculture, because we fall under agriculture, and the statutes are very clear as to what that money can be used for, and it can only be used for association expenses and purses. So we've been able to get a preliminary approval from the lawyers for the Racing Commission and the Department of Ag to retroactively use that money to pay a bonus on purses. So what we'll be able to do, at least what the plan is, we will have a look-back period and make an adjustment and send people that race during that time frame a check. It's a little trickier. I'm in the process of finalizing that. We will try to spend the purse money that we normally would have spent had the meet gone on, and get it distributed to horsemen. By and large, I think most people are being very realistic about this. They are not panicking, and panic doesn't do any of us any good. They're trying to figure out, going forward, how they will deal with this. And it's our responsibility, the association, the board of directors, myself, to try and bring some answers to them on that level, so that they can factor that in to their financial position moving forward. But it's difficult for them to know what to train, what not to train, how much do you train. I've had several horsemen call and ask, what should I do? I said, well, you don't want to let a horse down all the way necessarily, so you might want to give him some time in the field and bring him in and jog him every other day or every third day, or light train him so that he doesn't get out of condition, so that when you can race, they can get him back up to speed fairly quickly. Because once this is over and we go back to racing, horses are going to have to be ready and able to race. So from a horseman standpoint, you really, uncertainty is hard to deal with, because You prepare a horse for a race, you prepare a horse to race, and you can prepare him now, but you don't know when he's going to race. So it's a difficult situation, but I think most horsemen, are using what feels correct instinctively to them, and they'll adjust, and they'll manage their horses appropriately. But it's definitely a difficult situation from that standpoint. The DSOA Board of Directors has been absolutely phenomenal during this time. I've been in communication with several directors, or every director at some point, on more than one occasion. I've worked very closely with the president of the association, Andrew Marcano, and the other officers. George Dennis is first vice president, second vice president George Teague, Franny West, and Frank Delaberti, secretary and treasurer. But all the directors have had input into these decisions, and they're working tirelessly. They're the people that are out there that are able to contact me and let me know what's going on if I've not heard it from someone else. We've also been very fortunate to have the full support of the Secretary of Agriculture. He understands the problems, and he has worked with us to try and find the solutions that we need. John Hensley has been a big help at Dover Downs because obviously they're the custodians of the money. They have to distribute the money according to the law. So we've all tried to work within the framework of the statute and try and arrive at a solution that will work. So from that standpoint, cooperation has been phenomenal. Everybody's really trying to do what they can. There are some other avenues we're pursuing. Obviously, there's a federal package. There should be some revenue in there for people individually. There should be some revenue for small businesses. Until we see that, we don't know the particulars. But we've also asked the Secretary of Agriculture, who's engaged on the state level with the state and the governor, the administration, to try and see if we can't get some kind of loan relief similar to what they've done for the restaurant industry. The restaurant industry currently has, and there are some parameters obviously, but the gist of it is loans of up to $10,000 monthly with a 9-month deferral and 10 years to pay it back at zero interest. If we can, if we're able to get something like that, I think that can help a lot of horsemen who have, especially ones that have a lot of horses on the farm to feed. It can help offset those costs and keep them solvent during this time. So we're going to continue to pursue that, and anything that seems fair, equitable, and reasonable. If we can do it, we're going to try and do it, or at least we're going to look into it. It's too early to say what's going to go on at Harrington. Harrington wasn't scheduled to open until April 13th. The money in the Harrington purse account, is there for when the meet opens, but it's possible that if we have to have some discussions on using some of that money before the meet opens, that's always a possibility. Again, it's too early to say because we're not there yet. But I've had some preliminary discussions with Harrington. So horsemen have to understand that the Delaware Standardbred Owners Association is here working daily to try and give them the relief they're going to need at this time during this crisis. The directors are working tirelessly. My staff is working tirelessly, and we'll continue to do that. I ask for everyone's cooperation and patience. I realize sometimes it's frustrating and there's a lot of anxiety, but we are working to try and get as much revenue out to the horse community as is possible. This is an amazing country. We've survived the Civil War, World Wars, a Depression, 9/11, and this too will pass. I realize people are anxious. I realize people are scared, but this will pass. We will survive this, and we will come back, and we will bounce back stronger than ever before. I realize it's difficult for a lot of people, but they have to put their faith in each other. What we're going to remember once this is all over, a year or 2 years from now, is how we've treated each other. that's important. As long as we don't lose our human aspect, that we continue to be, as helpful to each other as possible, we can get through this.
Thank you, Sal. There was so much great information in that interview, and you can review some of what Sal discussed by going to the Delaware Standardbred Owners Association website at DSOAonline.com. There's a letter posted for our harness racing community concerning the COVID-19 pandemic. Stay safe, wash your hands, and social distance. And let's get back to the track.